I want to have a mystical conversation with you, with all of you, the kind where we lose ourselves in divine mysteries and we talk about dreams from the other side and intuitive nudgings and soul mission yearnings. I am personally way more interested in what our souls have to say about these lives than about what our everyday mind has to say. So that's what these conversations are, a meeting of souls, having a mystical conversation, lifting above the ego story, the everyday life, and going to that higher vibration where we really can see life from the soul's wisdom. That's where we feel our true mission, which is something my guest and I both help our clients understand and navigate. But it's also where we really tap into God consciousness, higher self, and intuition. And I'm Sue Frederick. I'm a master numerologist, an intuitive coach who's been working with clients for more than 20 years, author of 8 books, ordained unity minister, and soul regression therapist. And if you want to know more about my work, you can go to SueFrederick.com. However, today is all about my amazing guest. Her name is Shelly Wilson. She is an intuitive medium, an inspirational speaker, passionate about helping people wake up to their greatness. She supports others as they navigate their own journey into consciousness to experience aliveness. Shelly's books, 28 Days to a New You, Connect to the You Within, Journey into Consciousness, and Embracing the Magic Within are all available in paperback and ebook. She's also the creator of Cards of Empowerment and Clarity Cards. For more information, you can go to shellyrwilson.com. Hello, Shelly.
Hello, Sue. I am so delighted to share a conscious conversation with you today.
Oh, I have to really tell the listeners that I've known Shelly and we've talked. I've been on her radio show years ago and we've read each other's books, but we had a mystical conversation this weekend because we were both speakers and healers at this amazing conference of 900 grieving parents, where you would think that would be a really depressing place to be. It was the most high frequency gathering I've ever been a part of, because it's from helpingparentsheal.org, and all those parents are searching for a higher way of looking at grief and knowing that that relationship with our departed continues beyond death of the body. And so Shelly and I ran into each other. She was a working medium all during the conference, doing everything from private sessions to gallery readings, helping parents heal constantly. And I was there doing a couple of talks and a numerology class, and we ran into each other and had the most glorious conversation. So Shelly, the other thing I want to tell everybody is Shelly is deeply involved with Unity Church, as I am too, and that we've kind of had these parallel journeys of speaking at various Unity churches. And she's really considering becoming a Unity minister. Woohoo, Shelly. Okay, Shelly, say hello.
Hello, yes, and it was quite an amazing weekend. And once again, I was looking forward to meeting you in person, Sue, because we've had a conversation once again years ago, and of course interacted on Facebook, but not in person. And it was just this immediate connection
It
from
was.
my perspective. And
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to ask you about your unity journey and becoming ordained and all of that. And so I just appreciate all of the insight you gave me and the advice that you gave me as well.
I said, yes, she should do it. And the reason is, I think for our listeners, many of you might wonder why, if we already have and this is something parallel for me and Shelly, like we both have been spiritual coaches, seeing clients for eons. Like for me, it's been since around early 2000s. And So it wasn't like I was looking for a new, more meaningful career. I was looking to kick my spiritual resonance up not a few notches because I really felt that consciousness was calling all of us to kind of step up, choose a path, choose the highest light vibrational path you can choose because consciousness really needs it right now. And so Shelley's the same. She's been writing books and booked with clients, and she has no need to become a minister, but she has a calling to kind of bring that message of hers to that higher frequency that consciousness needs. Would you agree that that's the right interpretation,
Yes.
Shelley?
Absolutely, Sue. And I think, once again, because when I was exploring the notion several years ago, I just, first of all, wondered if I wanted the responsibility of a church. And,
Mhm.
did I want to do this? Why did I want to do this? And I've just been sitting with it and asking for additional clarity and even having the interaction and conversation that we did, Spirit saying yes. And much like you said, you don't have to have a church. You don't have to do
Right.
this. This can be a ministry that evolves into what you choose it to be and, what it chooses to be for itself as well.
So, on that note, I'm going to ask you, what was the turning point in your life? How old were you when you went from previous career? And by the way, what was your previous career?
Yes, well, I did various office work and various locations. Trucking company was one of them. So it was one of those things. I have a business degree and an accounting degree, and then decided to go back to college and finish the bachelor's because I just had an associate's and decided to get a minor in psychology.
Mm.
And one of the courses was on death and dying. And to me,
Oh.
that really elevated my awareness into the work that I began doing.
Mhm. So tell me the moment you said, I'm going to be an intuitive medium.
Yes. Well, first of all, as a kid, I was always sensitive. I always knew things, but I wasn't raised in an environment that was conducive to exploring that. My dad's an engineer. We were raised Baptist, and it was just one of those things, that's not something we talked about. And it
Mhm.
was literally in my late 20s that I felt like I was just existing, a wife, a mother, and everything was taking priority. And I decided this wasn't the way that I wanted to live the rest of my life. So I decided to stop existing and start living and began exploring. And Reiki came to my awareness in my late 30s.
Mm.
And I began stepping into that. And then Lisa Williams came into my awareness, and I
Mm.
began developing my mediumship. I
Mhm.
had the opportunity to study with several well known mediums, and I knew that that was the path that I was on. So 2008 is when I began practicing Reiki full time. And then it was 2010 when I began stepping into develop it more mediumship wise and then just went full time from there.
So many things about that I love. And one of them is that you said it was your late 20s when your soul said, wait a minute, I'm here for more than just this, and I've got to find
Yes.
it. That's our first set and return. All my clients know that I always go to that point in our late 20s and I go, at that point in your journey, who did you begin to know that you were, and how did it change your life? So you just addressed that. And what's so cool, Shelley, is you're moving into the decade of your life that it contains your second Saturn return.
Mm,
So that means that all the knowingness you began to have as you started your journey of being a spiritual healer, a guide, call it whatever you want to call it, now it comes to full culmination in your second Saturn return. Boy, there's never been a bigger sign that, yeah, you need to go to ministry school.
right. And, I explored the idea years ago. I mean, this would have been the early, I'm trying to think, so 2000, 10 was the when it was coming into my awareness because I'd been to Unity Village
Mhm.
and I was just really thinking, do I want to do this? And I wasn't get the clear indication of it. And I don't want to say that I felt too young, but I just wondered if there was more that I needed to experience before I pursued that more. Then I
Mhm.
had the opportunity to speak at a few churches in Tulsa and in Fayetteville and just enjoyed it. It was just periodically. And then in the last few years, I've spoken more frequently in Branson and Tulsa and Fayetteville and Bentonville and so on. And I just get this strong sense too, as I become more empowered and
Mhm.
more confident with who I am, it feels like this is something that I really need to take a good hard look at to see if
Mhm.
I want to step into it at this time.
So I have a different question. Take us in a kind of different direction. You spent this 4-day conference working with grieving parents, connecting to their departed children. How did that process unfold for you? When did you realize you really could do this? And would you be willing to share an experience? You don't have to give the names of a couple from the weekend or something, or that you really had a clear connection to their child.
Yes, yes. So it was 2010 once again when I first took a development class with Lisa Williams and we're doing a group exercise and I'm getting information and I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and they're validating it. And I just was amazed because I didn't realize that I could do it, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so just over the years continued to develop it. This weekend in particular, I did participate in a group reading with another medium. I also did a sibling group by myself.
Wow.
And there was just, and I did several private sessions as well, but there was a moment during the group reading that I did Friday night, and I could feel this female wanting to come forward. And I knew that she passed by choice, meaning that she took her life.
Mhm.
And I could feel the impact of her choice. I am empathic, which means I'm sensitive to energies,
Mhm.
and the energy was overwhelming. I began to sob. I just felt
Mhm.
all of this energy come through me, and I knew that the mother was there, and I gave her information to validate that it was her daughter, and I could see her just barely raising her hand. And
Okay.
I looked at her and I was holding space for her, and she raised it a little higher, and then I delivered the message. And the mother was so appreciative and she began sobbing even more. And so the medium I was working with, then she proceeded to give a message. And I was guided to leave the stage and to go sit with this woman and to hold her hand and put my arm around her and thank her for speaking up because it was important. Now, I wasn't doing that to get attention or anything like that, but I could feel her pain. And I just
Yeah.
knew if I could sit with her and comfort her in that moment, that she wouldn't be alone. And I sat with her a few minutes, went back to my place on the stage as discreetly as I could. And
Mhm.
then afterwards, I went up to her and she thanked me. But I will tell you, Sue, it was on Sunday when I was getting ready to go do a presentation
Mhm.
that I passed her and I almost didn't recognize her because she was shining brighter. And
Mhm.
she thanked me and I could feel that gratitude from the bottom of her heart. She said, "You have no idea how that helped me." I said, "I think I do.
Um,
I could feel it."
And you see, that story ties so many threads here together that we're talking about, because I've worked with so many parents whose children have chosen to take their own life. And just like you, I know that those children did it for a certain reason and that they're totally fine in the divine realms. There's no going to hell or any of the stuff
Right.
the Baptists teach us, or I grew up Catholic, none of that. And so a big part of the trauma and pain of these parents is that they feel shunned from their religion if they have been following those kinds of traditional Christianity paths. So they're shunned from their community, and they have a sense of shame, like, what have I done wrong to make this happen? And so your message from the divine that her beautiful daughter, female, gorgeous soul, was fully intact and fully fine, and that it was a soul exit choice that had deeper reasons and deeper things that we don't have time to go into, but it was for everyone's highest growth. And think about that mom now, Shelly. Because of you, she can go back into her family and her community and not hang her head in shame. And instead, as one of the speakers talked about this weekend, own her story and say, yes, my child died by taking her own life, and she's the most amazing shining light
Yeah.
soul, and just carry on.
Yes. And I think that's where we help to empower people too, because when we start looking at life through that divine lens from that higher
Mhm.
soul perspective, we are understanding that bigger picture. As humans, it's really challenging for us, but this is
Yeah.
where we become more of the observer, and we don't know everything, of course, when we're here, but I do feel like our perspective shifts exponentially once we do cross to the other side.
Absolutely. And, so many speakers talked about that this weekend. I've had my own experiences of leaving my body and going to the divine realms and not wanting to come back, And so that story, that is the part where we are our true divine selves. And this down here on earth is the hard part where we're trying to evolve consciousness, evolve our own soul's journey. um, it's hard for humans here to get their minds around it because our culture and our world tells us such a different story. And also, the cynical mind is so dominant these days in the world. Um, one of the things I talked about this weekend was how, if you really had to boil it down to what do we all need to carry in our hearts to survive and thrive in these times of grief and change and craziness, I said it's courage to trust your heart that you are getting signs, that you do see your departed, in spite of what the world tells you is real or possible. And all of those parents, Shelley, everyone you worked with, everyone I touched, they are leaving that conference going, I can trust what my heart says is true, even when my cynical family members or cynical priest or whatever might say poo poo to the woo woo. And
Right.
and I think that's one of the gifts that we bring, all of us spirit workers, soul workers, whatever you want to call us, and future unity ministers that help people see we don't have to get lost in the story that this physical world is the most important thing happening.
Exactly. And as we know, Sue, the third principle, unity principle, is a reminder that our thoughts create a reality and determine our experiences.
Mhm.
And when we think about that too, because we're all here to have a human life experience, and I believe, we're here to learn and to grow. And I know in my heart that, there are challenges, there are health issues, financial issues,
Mhm.
whatever it may be, but I feel like they're happening for us rather than to us, if we can see it
Absolutely.
in that way. And when we're immersed in it, we're not going to see it in the same way as when we're beyond it or through it. And I
Right.
think that the biggest thing for all of us is to do our best to be present, to do our best to trust, and once again, have that courage and love in our heart to really recognize that we do have the power of choice and we can choose how we respond. We can choose what we perceive. There's so many things beyond our control, but those are things that we can control.
And that's all right. It's a choice. And that brings us back to the word courage, right? Because
Yes.
to make that choice to look at it differently, to see that soul's view, you are bucking the system here. You are taking the alternative path. You are being quote unquote woo woo in a world of left brain logic. And so all of you listeners who have a part in of yourself that knows you can connect to your departed, that knows there's way more going on here than the physical world, let your heart guide you to your own personal proof of the divine and forget about what the world is telling you. You should believe. And Shelley, the other thing I was thinking is, as you were talking, my favorite unity principle is one presence, one power, God the good. And to me, what that means is if a child chooses to leave early, of course, there's no punishment on the other side. That is a soul going to the other side, going, all right, well, here's what I learned. Here's what I can continue to learn. Gee, this was the part that was hard for me. I can grow into that part of it as I'm even up here in the divine realm studying and learning, or I can choose to go back and grow and learn. It is our soul planning the curriculum in this all good, all God universe where there's no punishing karma, punishing God. And I think it's so amazing to me, and I'm sure you'll agree that humans, we want to see this this strong line of right and wrong, good and bad, black and white, and that is really, the universe is way more nebulous than that.
Yes, and I'm a believer, Sue, as you were sharing those words, is, we tend to have experiences in the form of contrast. So as we experience a challenge, we'll experience a triumph. As we
Right.
experience what we perceive to be something negative or bad, we're going to experience the good too. And many times it's throughout the day.
Yeah.
And I just feel once again, if we can see life once again through that lens, and just do our best to not stress about life. Instead, if it does feel like you're existing and going through the motions, maybe this is when you need to assess what you desire and really begin focus on consciously creating so that you do feel alive.
And also acknowledging that, we come in here and we're kind of told, oh, you're going to find your path in your 20s, and you're going to kind of do that work forever and live happily ever after and have a 401. What are those things called? I've
Right?
never had one. So you're going to have this beautiful retirement plan and play golf the rest of your life. And there's that story circulating here. And that is so harmful to people because instead, the way it works is we come in with a soul mission, and people can find that information in so many different ways. I personally use numerology as my gateway to it, but there's a million different ways to find it. And that mission is going to keep changing and tweaking our work and our way and our expression in the world. And we cannot resist the change, because the change, the terrifying change that happens to all of us just when we think we got it going on, and suddenly that company goes out of business that we work for, or we get fired, or our husband dies and we have to completely reinvent our life. When we hit those moments, we think it's all bad. We think we've done something bad, when the opposite is true. It's our soul going, okay, next phase of your journey, step up.
Yes, it's time to start it. And we think of life too, if we use the idea of it being a story, a book, a movie, whatever it may be. And, we don't have to write the entire book in advance. We're writing it day by day.
Mhm,
And, we get to decide many instances how that story is going to end. And a
mhm.
lot of it is even our perception of it.
And also, I always tell people, if you really want to find your courage, just go on a little meditation where you've ended, your life is over. It's the last day of your life, and your soul is lifting up above this heavy physical world and the monkey mind, and sort of just arriving back in the higher consciousness of the soul, divine realms. And now you're looking down, doing your soul review, and you're thinking, wow, I kind of lived in fear. Like, I hated that job for 50 years and it caused me all kinds of health problems. It ruined my relationship, and I always knew it wasn't a good fit. Why did I just live in fear forever? And so you don't want that to be your soul review. You want your
Right.
soul review to say, hey, look at you, rock star. Every time you were afraid, you took a leap of faith that felt true and right to your heart. And look at all the magic that happened to catch you and guide you on your next step. That's the soul review we all want, right? So if anybody's listening and they're in that moment of leaping or not leaping, Shelly and I would just both tell you, take the leap.
Yes. If it's in your awareness, it's coming in for a reason. You're getting the nudge, you're getting that inspiration so that you will make some changes. And, as we know, Sue, that can be relationships as well. It could
Right.
be relocating. There's so many um, aspects involved to making a choice to make a change that will help you to live a more fulfilled life.
And that's all good. I mean, one of the benefits of the work that Shelly and I do is that we get to constantly hear people's life stories, right, Shelly?
Yes,
And
exactly.
and when you hear enough people say, "Well, I hit that moment of my reinvention and I changed this and that, and boy, I'm so glad I did. It was terrifying, but now I wouldn't be the person I am if I hadn't done that." And you hear that enough, and then you watch it in your own life, you just feel like, "Come on, people, like there's nothing to be afraid of." The worst part is when you're waiting to take the leap and trying to talk yourself out of it, because I guarantee you, when you look back at it all, you're going to go, "Oh my God, I'm so glad I did it. Why did I wait so long?"
That is so true. And once again, when we're immersed in something, we're going to look at it in a different way than when we're on the other side or looking through that divine lens.
So what techniques, because I know both of us are meditators and very spiritual people. I always teach people to meditate to get that higher view. What would you say to listeners about a few tricks and tools that you like or love for helping them shift from that human view into their soul's view?
Yes, well, as we know, Sue, we all breathe. We have that life force flowing through us. So, literally, taking some conscious and empowered breaths will shift energy. And I always tell people to do a nice audible exhale to let that energy out as you do that. Also, when we think about meditation, it is always doing it in a way that feels good to you because some people do love that guided meditation or sitting quietly, but my personal preference is to gaze out the window or go for a walk or just sit outdoors. So there's many ways, but one tool that I find absolutely beneficial and something I regularly practice is what I call practicing that good energetic hygiene. So
Mhm.
staying grounded, centering our energy, clearing chakras, clearing aura, and cutting those energetic cords. And once again, it's the intention to do each of those. And the cords that we clear are lower vibrational, fear based, heavy energies. And when we think about doing energy work in that way, because we are energetic beings, the main thing is to do it in a way that feels like a practice rather than an obsession.
Mm. So where can listeners learn more about those techniques?
Yeah.
What books are
Well,
they?
it's in my newest book, Embracing the Magic Within, and it's also in Journey into Consciousness, but I made it super easy to Sue. If listeners go to my website and click on the resources page, I've got a PDF that you can download for free or just
Mhm.
access it from there. And there's also a PDF with tips to strengthen your chakras and a chakra clearing audio file that you can work with also.
Beautiful. And again, her website is Shelly, Shelly, and then there's an R, and then Wilson, Wilson.com. So do you want to share with us what the R is
Yeah,
for?
it's Renee, my middle name, and
So
there
that'll
yes.
help the listeners remember Renee. It's ShellyRWilson.com.
Yeah,
And she has so many tools and techniques and everything you could need. And this is such a pivotal time in consciousness. So many people are struggling right now. There's so much intense energy. And all of you listening are in some form of reinvention, or you probably wouldn't be listening to this conversation. But remember that there's not just one way to move through it. You can go to Shelley's website and see how she presents it. There's so many profound teachers who are speaking about this right now. I've got my own stuff on my website. Pick what resonates for you. And Shelley brings a gift of being sparky and fun. I mean, in numerology, she's the Sagittarius 3 path. It doesn't get more fun and playful and easy than that. Connecting to people, making it fun, that's her gift. But look at this profoundly deep work that she's bringing to the world through that gift. And mine is more, I'm the Virgo 22, like I'm going to teach you these kind of intense techniques, and stuff. That's just how I am. So you people can resonate with the thing that resonates with you. And, boy, all I can say is this weekend, Shelly, when we were there and all of these peoples came, listeners, you have to know that many of these parents were in raw grief. They had not left home since their children had crossed because they'd been so devastated. And they found the courage to get on a plane or whatever and come to this gathering. Some of them came alone without their spouse or their partner. And some were blessed to have their partner say, okay, well, I'll go with you, but maybe I'll just sit by the pool. And then, of course, their partner had a great awakening as well. But again, what they all experienced was in their own way, in their own ease of experiencing it, that life continues beyond death. And it's not to go to a punishing God or a heaven and hell judgment, which is what religion tells us, mainstream religion. It is to go to your own soul awakening journey. And that, boy, when we embrace that, Shelly, isn't that just the most calming, healing awareness that we could ever have?
Yes. And one thing I want to add, Sue, when you and I were sharing a conversation, we both had several people come up to us and just express their gratitude to us for
Mhm.
work that we do and how we help parents heal and help others. And
Mhm.
as you can recall, I was very emotional in that moment because what I
Mhm.
shared also is because I live in Oklahoma and even with a lot of my family members, that they really felt that what I do is not a good thing. And
Yeah.
I've just stayed strong in my power and been steadfast, having that courage in my heart, and
Mhm.
just knowing that this is the path that I'm supposed to be on, just as you know as
Mhm.
well. And then feeling that appreciation and that love for us choosing that path.
And that is really what the conference was for all of us because, even in my life, here I am in my own little Zoom room in my own little house in Phoenix, Arizona, doing my work with clients and everything. But the majority of the world around me does not believe in what I do, which makes me sad because, boy, it would help them so much. And you're the same way. And so, and these parents who've experienced devastating loss, they've been told to go see a grief therapist, which is good. It's good. It's just not the whole picture of it. Or they've been told to get over their grief, which we all know is crazy, that you don't get over grief. Grief becomes your best friend and your spiritual teacher when you allow it to. And and so these people who showed up, we were all validating for each other that yes, this is real. There were so many miracles that happened. There were so many parents who were just healed, who saw the most amazing signs. There was a father one morning who got up. Elizabeth had asked if there were any testimonials, and this dad got up on the stage and he said, yeah, I didn't want to come to this. I've never believed in God or anything beyond the physical, but we lost our child recently, and my wife really wanted me to come with her. She didn't feel she could do it alone. And so I came with her, and I was just going to sit at the pool. And he came to one of those opening keynotes. We had the most amazing speakers where they combined science with all of this and all the research that is out there validating that electromagnetic energy is the core of everything and it never ends. Like when a soul dies, their soul energy is still continuing. And so when they heard that talk, the scientific part of it, the research began to make the dad go, wow, so this just isn't a bunch of woo-woo, quote unquote.
Right.
There's science in it, right? And I'm so glad Elizabeth had designed the conference so that there were great scientists up there, like of course, I'm forgetting. Tell me, I'm losing names out of my left
Yes,
brain.
yes, I keep hearing Dr. Schwartz, I think
Dr.
he was one,
Schwartz, the
yes.
best. He's been researching afterlife phenomenon for 50 years and proving it in the lab. And then there's that amazing book and speaker, The Afterlife Frequency by Mark Anthony. Any of you listeners want to look at science first as your way to jump in, go for that. And then a personal story that touched everyone's heart. Dr. Mary Neal, who was is an orthopedic surgeon, very left brain, didn't believe in anything woo-woo. She died in a kayaking accident for 30 minutes, left her body, had this mystical experience that we're talking about, and then came back. They pushed her to come back so that she would share her message. And it's just, nobody lives after 30 minutes of drowning, but she was brought back to life with no brain damage and this amazing story of life beyond death. So any of those people, you can go to their websites. They bring the science to it. They bring that cynical viewpoint to help you move through that. And then Shelly and I are here with our gifts of helping you see that there is always a higher message in your heart, that you're always getting nudges of what to do and how to connect. And Shelly and I do our work to help you move the baby steps you need to move through to get that done. So we're all working together in this.
Yes, and as we know, Sue, too, as we were talking before going live, how important it is for everyone to practice that self-care, and that's something that we recognize even for ourselves to do.
Mhm. And by self-care, tell the listeners what you mean specifically.
Yeah, so when I think of self-care, this to me is a gentle reminder that we need to cocoon as needed. We need to stay hydrated. We need to rest, all of that. Whatever we can do, whatever we would want someone else to do for themselves, we have to make sure we do that for ourselves as well.
I agree 100%. And Shelly and I were comparing notes about how we got back from this intense conference and like we're both kind of cocooning right now because
Yes.
our energy was so pulled out in the world. Like I haven't left the house since I got home. But the other thing that's really a part of that self-care, I believe, is crying. I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but many of these parents this weekend are in such a place of grief that sometimes they can't even let themselves cry because they're afraid that it'll open the floodgates and their pain will be overwhelming. I've been in deep grief and I know that feeling, but to survive and thrive here on our soul's journey, if you want to take a moment, especially in the morning when you wake up, to feel that grief, feel that pain, cry it out. Let those endorphins, pour through you when you cry. Have a good cry. Go watch a sad movie. Have a good cry. I guarantee it's going to clear out sadness and pain and give you a better day moving forward.
Yes, and with that too, just a reminder to feel whatever you feel. So as we know, we may sometimes feel angry or frustrated or confused, in addition to feeling sad, and absolutely we can feel the joy and the happiness and all of those energies as well. So just knowing from my perspective, part of our human life is experience is to feel whatever we're feeling in that moment without feeling like we have to deny ourselves that opportunity.
I love that. The way I translate that or see that is that we have one foot in the physical and one foot in the divine because our soul is a divine being and yet we chose to have a body and come into the physical. So we've got to walk with two legs here. We have to have the physical experience, which includes anger, pain, grief, sadness, depression, even anxiety. And then we use our other foot, our connection to the soul, to the higher consciousness, to kind of help us rise above it when we're ready. Not, if you need a week of feeling terrible to move some of those feelings through you, go for it. But then when you're ready, try some of these techniques that Shelly and I teach about lifting up to your soul's view and see if you start feeling better there. And then it's okay if you have another day of crying or feeling bad. Don't fight with your humanity,
Yes.
because then you're going to fight with your divinity. Like, you have
Right.
to say yes to both of them.
That is very true, Sue.
Gosh, Shelly, I think we could do this forever. We need the Shelly and Sue show.
Show. Well, I have definitely enjoyed sharing conversation with you, and that's what I love about you is you're just so easy to connect with, and you have so much wisdom to share as well.
So, what are your parting words to our listeners?
So my parting words is it's so important rather than existing to live life, embrace your aliveness, do your best to be present, and have the courage in your heart to feel bold and confident with the choices that you're making.
Beautiful, beautiful. Go to shellyrwilson.com for more, or SueFrederick.com for more. We both love you very much. And until we meet again, have a great mystical conversation with someone else. Goodbye.